All right, welcome to another episode of the Vets in Real Estate Podcast. I'm joined by Marv this week, who's going to talk about his journey from military on into the investment, into the multifamily side of the business. Marv, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much, Will. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to hear your transition as well, and I think it's interesting. We've got you spent time in the Navy.
Did 21 years active duty.
And I think it's interesting as we see trends. The two trends we're starting to see more and more and more is that they're all military police or they're all former Navy. Not all, but I mean we're starting to see that there's some kind of correlation here. Either how we're recruiting people is for the podcast is coming that way, that it's all military police or sailors that are making that transition to real estate. So we'll see if there's any scientific evidence to that. But tell us about your time in the service. What'd you do?
I was a loggy, so I spent 21 years as a supply officer on ships, specifically cruisers, and graduated from the Naval Academy in 1992, and then spent 21 years around the world. Lived in Japan for 6 years, and ended up my active duty career with a 5 year stint at Special Operations Command down here in Tampa, Florida.
Oh, that sounds like it'd be full of stories that you can't tell anybody.
There are a few of those. There are a few of those. But man, those guys, I have the utmost respect for the soft guys, man. In any service, they're just incredible professionals.
Yeah. So 21 years, was real estate since day one the dream and the goal, or was it just something you kind of fell into towards the end, or how did you even think about that transition?
It was kind of a mix of both, to be perfectly honest with you. My wife became a residential real estate agent in 2005. So, a lot of military spouses are looking, hey, how can I contribute? And they become real estate agents or school teachers or bank tellers or they have great, lawyers or whatever. But my wife ended up going into residential real estate, and that kind of helped us early on to be a little bit more strategic in the houses that whenever we were PCS, and hey, do we want to buy this house very intentionally with the plan to make it a long-term rental, or are we just going to buy this house or get into this house as a rental? So that framework helped us get into intentionally get into some houses that we thought would be good rentals over the course of our career. And I guess, by the time I retired in 2013 and then spent a decade in corporate America, I think at that time we had like a half a dozen single family rentals. So it kind of is a little bit of a mix.
Yeah. So you'll have a little different perspective of this. We see a lot of our veterans transition to go into residential real estate. You kind of had the opportunity to watch your wife go through the struggles of building a business, all that. Was there anything that you learned maybe secondhand through her that maybe most veterans that are making that transition may not be aware of?
It's hard work. I mean, I think, a lot of us that are, getting near retirement or seeing, maybe a real estate agent that's just killing it. And you're like, man, that doesn't seem like a whole lot of work. It's, and I can remember when my wife got a real estate agent, her real estate license, you know, most real estate agents work in the afternoon and evenings because the people that are looking for houses are either veterans coming in on house hunting or they're working professionals. So, I'd get home from the base and from work at, 5 or 6 o'clock at night, and she'd be like, hey, I'm leaving at 4:30. The kids are doing their homework. Can you take over? I'll be back at, 8. Or, the weekends would roll around and, hey, I'm doing an open house at Saturday at 1 o'clock and I'm going to go show houses. So, I mean, a lot of people, I think, see the glamour and a lot of instances see the money when the market is really, really hot. And real estate agents work, man, they work their tails off. And as we built a couple of rentals, it didn't change. I was just like, hey, this is easy. We're going to get all this passive income. Uh, and it's not exactly passive.
Yeah, 2 a.m. toilet leaking
Oh,
call.
I got a
Never,
story from
never.
I got a story from yesterday that'll blow your mind. It never fails. It keeps on going, man.
Sure. On the family balance side, then, I mean, you got to see it from being the full time breadwinner while your wife was building her business. you kind of alluded to the fact that she was out, selling houses and showing and doing all that kind of stuff there. Did that have any impact on family life or any things that you guys did well to kind of keep that family life together?
I mean, it was a mindset shift for me, to be perfectly honest with you. I was used to being the sole breadwinner and coming home and everybody runs to the door, or hey, at least you
Mhm.
get acknowledged and have dinner as a family and things like that. And she wanted to contribute and she was out wanting to build her business, like you said. And I was a little jealous, to be perfectly honest with you. I was a little
Mhm.
jealous. I had a little, ego, and I was just like, hey, weekends are for us, And she's like, well, I've got to work. So, I think it really took me kind of getting out of the way a little bit and saying, hey, this is, she's been following me around the world as a military spouse, which I'm firmly in the school that believes that's one of the most difficult jobs. Being a mom's probably the hardest job in the world. Being a military mom, it takes it all to the next level. So I think it was me getting out of the way and having a better appreciation for what she was trying to do for the family. And once I did that, uh, kind of reprioritized how I approach the situation. That helped a lot, but it did take some work on my part.
Sure, and I would imagine, especially having completely conflicting schedules, the got to be very intentional between date night, spending time
Yeah,
with the kids. Like it becomes almost scheduled,
yeah,
but you still
you're
want to have some spontaneity.
yeah. Well, we have four kids, and
Mm.
in 2005 when she started, they were all less than 10 years old.
Mm.
So you really got to schedule everything between soccer and t-ball and feedings and all of the above. And then when she's like, hey, I've been I've been a mom for I've been doing this for 10 years and now I feel like I want to kind of contribute to the bottom line. You really got to schedule stuff and prioritize time together as a couple for sure. It's so spot on and so critically important to maintaining a healthy marriage.
I think, especially coming from the military, we're not known for having successful marriages already. The divorce rate in the military is extremely high. And I can imagine adding a career where you guys are overlapping just makes that much more difficult. I don't think a lot of veterans, as they transition to real estate, think that portion through. And I know I'm lucky on the commercial side where, I mean, we're more or less 9 to 5, for the most part, typical banker hours there. But if you start looking at the residential side, I mean, it really is. You are working evenings and weekends where you may not start your day till 10 o'clock, but you're going till 10 o'clock at night, filling out contracts and all that fun stuff as well.
Yeah, and that's a great point. The other point I would make on the residential side is, in the military, as you well know, Will, we're not. It's not a merit. It's not really a merit-based system. If you stay, you make O3 or E5, you stay another 3 years, you take the test, or you don't, totally step on it, you're going to get a promotion up to a certain point. So it's not, I would say, the most merit-based system in the world. So, but you get into real estate and the harder you work, more deals you close, more money you make. And so there's, especially for type A military people, you're like, man, if I work 12 hours a day and I close 5 deals a month, I can make $20,000 a month. Where, hey, you get in the military and like, hey, I just got promoted to lieutenant. I'm gonna make $3,500 for the next 5 years. You know what I mean? So I think you hit it right on the head. On the residential side, you doing showings at night. Maybe you're filling out contracts at night. You're answering text messages from people that you took on showings late at night, and then you're hungry to make more money whenever you see that stuff coming through. So you can really get sucked into it pretty rapidly.
So you didn't go directly into real estate. So as you're getting close to that time for retirement, what was your thought process? Was real estate even on your mind at all, and maybe later, or what did that look like for you?
It wasn't even on my mind. It really wasn't. I'm a sports fanatic, and like I love anything that involves sport. I mean, hockey, basketball, baseball, football, golf. And I wanted to get into professional sports. I wanted to figure out whether I could get into the football operations or baseball operations of a professional team. So, whenever I got ready to started making my preparations for transition, I reached out to the director of football operations for the Tampa Bay Bucks and the Tampa Bay Rays and the University of South Florida athletic director and the director of hockey operations for the Lightning, and said, "Hey, I'm not looking for a job, but I'd love 30 minutes of your time and get your advice on how to get into professional sports." And the cool thing was, when I caveated it that way, they were all like, "Hey, I'll give you 30 minutes of my time." And to a person, they were so gracious with their time. And to a person, they all said, "Wait," I was like, "Hey, do I need to go back to school and get a degree in sports management, or what do I need to do?" And they're all like, "You need to start volunteering for, either at for the Bucks or for the Rays or for the South Florida Bulls, and then maybe you can get into a client sales role or something like that where you're selling tickets." And I was just like, they're like, "Yeah, you probably start at 40 grand a year." And, I was a '05 with 21 years in the Navy. I was like, man, I've got 4 kids. I was like, that's impossible. And then at the same time, I was kind of simultaneously going through a transition program called American Corporate Partners, ACP. And, I've got a master's degree in finance. And, they were like, "Hey, what do you want to do?" And I'm like, "Well, maybe I'll go get my Series 7 and work for Merrill Lynch or one of those things." So I had a guy from Wells Fargo who was kind of my mentor. And he was coaching me through that. And I was applying for, all these firms and stuff like that. And they were all telling me, "Hey, we can start you at this, and in 3 years we'll get you whole. We love your leadership, we love your education, we love your experience, but you don't have any experience in banking, and you don't have any experience in the markets, and we'll start you here, but in 3 years we can get you back to what you're making now, and then the sky's the limit." And I'm like 44 at that time, or 43 at that time, with 4 kids, and I'm like, man, I can't take a 30% pay cut for 3 years. And, I need to make money. So what I did was, which I would say probably, I don't know, more than half of military veterans do, is, I had one of the big DoD contractors say, "Hey, you can retire on a Friday and I'll pay you this. I'll pay you exactly what you're making now, and you'll have your retirement, and you can come to work in civies on Monday." And I was like, "So let me get this straight. You're going to pay me what I'm making now, and I get to keep my retirement, and I can do what I'm doing right now, and I've been doing that for 2.5 years, so I can do it in my sleep." They're like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Man, that's a $30,000 pay raise. Sign me up for that." So I kind of got sucked into DoD contracting, and and then the money kept getting better, and I did that for 10 years until I was just like, man, I'm chasing my tail here. I got to do something different. And that's when I really started investigating, you know, transitioning into real estate full time.
I want to go back to one of the things you said is you're starting to transition, you were thinking sports management, and you started reaching out. How did, I guess, one, how did you find those people? And then what that pitch look like? And, how many times did you make that pitch and people respond, and how many didn't respond?
I mean, I was lucky. I mean, I had a gentleman that, kind of just a local older gentleman that was kind of mentoring me a little bit, just informally, a friend of mine. And I was sharing with him, and he was like, "Well, why don't you just reach out to these people? Just, take a swing." So it didn't really look like anything official. So I Googled, director of football operations, Tampa Bay Bucks. And then, I called the front office and explained what I was trying to do and got his email. And a lot of their emails were on their websites. So, and I just sent cold emails to all these people and just said, "Hey, I'm a transitioning veteran. This is what I'm looking to do." But I made really, really clear, this is not me looking for a job. I'm looking for advice. And I think taking the edge off that helped a lot because all of them, I think one person didn't respond, and I credit that to be probably super busy. But I mean, I probably sent a half a dozen of those emails, and I think I had, all but one respond and give me 30 minutes. And many of those 30 minutes turned into an hour. And the more importantly, what those turned into, and I don't have anything for you, I can't help you, but let me connect you to my friend here. So I think those 5 meetings turned into maybe 8 or 9, and really helped me solidify the fact that, hey, although I'm probably just as good being a fan than trying to kind of rebuild my financial future from the bottom up in this industry.
No, we've heard similar stories to this in the past, and really that magical word is, I'm a transitioning soldier, sailor, whatever the case happens to be. I want to understand what your industry's like before I make a life changing decision. Would you give me 30 minutes of your time for some advice? And we've heard this over and over again was, don't come in pitching, don't come in like you're looking for a job, but hey, I'm getting ready to make a huge career decision. I just want to make sure I'm making the right decision. Would you be willing to give me advice? I think that is such a powerful way, whether you're going to go into IT sales, real estate, politics, whatever the case happens to be. I think that's such a powerful way to do it because who doesn't want to help a transitioning service member? If they got time, who wouldn't?
Yeah,
And I think
100%.
and exactly what you said. Hey, what should we do from there? Who else should I know? They've got decades worth of experience. That I mean, who's to say they didn't have a job, but that next person may have. And if you continued, down that path, maybe you would have found, a role in that industry.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, and you hit something that I think, two things that I think veterans don't really aren't good at. One, at the end of every meeting, I would always ask, and this is what my friend, call it mentor, told me. At the end of every meeting, I said, "Who else should I meet? Is there anybody else who you think could really help me?" And I think that uh, that alone just really helped pour gas on uh, the networking piece of it. And the other thing is, get a mentor. Whether you're going through one of these programs or not, get a mentor because, there's so many things in the military that we don't know. We're not trained to negotiate, and, I got my first job offer and I was like, what do I do with this? And I showed it to my mentor. He's like, oh man, you should go for, a gas allowance. And I was like, a what? I mean, just kind of, we don't, we have no idea when you're transitioning what, what to look for, what mistakes to avoid. So I would really, really encourage any transitioning veteran to find, whether it's via a formal program or just reach out to somebody you trust that's in the market or in the job that, that market or industry that you want to be in, and get some advice.
No, that's great, and you're absolutely right. I remember doing my first corporate contract and having no idea, and realizing that people that had maybe less experience than I did were getting a whole lot better deals than what I did because I didn't know what to ask for.
Yeah.
And I mean, this was after coming out of university, coming out of some training where I thought I knew what I knew. I left a lot of money on the table.
Yeah. And a lot of veterans, I know I did as well, for sure.
And LinkedIn has a study they do every year, and I can't remember when it comes out. It should be soon, but they come through and they actually talk about what veterans at transition look like, and kind of your story is kind of similar to mine as well. And at least what LinkedIn is saying is that most veterans come in and they have to take some type of pay cut, some type of reduction before they come in. And I think that's, I don't know, ego comes into it a little bit. I went from this and now I'm like junior again. I think that comes into play a little bit of it as well. But then what you mentioned as well is the financial piece. I mean, I remember I was in E5, making decent money, turn around and going to make half coming back into the industry.
Yep.
You're saying the same thing. You were going to, work for 30% of what you were making, or 30% less than what you were making. I mean, that's a tough decision. You also ultimately said, "Hey, that doesn't work for you because of your family situation." But what should veterans who are in that situation do? You know, is your path the right way? That they should look for something else that's going to make them money? Should they, if they really want to be in industry, do you start at the bottom? I mean, what would you give advice to somebody who's kind of staring at the same thing you were staring at?
Man, great question. And I'll tell you, and the only reason I've got an immediate answer is because I talk to a lot of veterans that are transitioning, a lot of my old friends, and other recommendations. Uh, I'll tell them 90 to 120 days before you make a decision, do a very, very meticulous budget. Track every one of your expenses for at least 90 to 120 days, optimally 6 months. Is it painful? Yes, it's super painful. But until you know exactly what you spend every month to the nickel, you really don't know how much it takes you to live. So, I counsel everybody I talk to, hey, do a budget, a stringent budget, okay, and figure out, okay, over the last, 120 days, I spend $5,500 a month. Well, if you spend $5,500 a month and, you're going to pay $25,000 in taxes a year, and you want to save a little, man, you need a $90,000 job. And there's not a whole lot of $90,000 starting jobs out there. But you don't know that until you really know exactly what it takes you to live. And once you do that, it really gives you some freedom because if you need a $100,000 job to maintain your current quality of life, then your shot group is about that big. If it takes you 15 or $2,000, you don't have any debt and you live simply, and it takes you 2,500 bucks a month, your shot group just got that much bigger. So if you want to go be a school teacher, go be a school teacher. You want to go be a firefighter, go be a firefighter. Uh, but if you need to make $120,000, you better be a software engineer, or you better start, cutting your expenses. So that's what I tell folks.
Fair, that's good advice. As you're starting to transition from now government contracting into real estate, what would that transition for you look like?
Man, government contracting is tough. That I got frustrated being a government contractor, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, I was a business development guy, so I was always engaging customers, always chasing contracts. And it's kind of the what have you done for me lately? It's hey, we won a contract. Yay, I'm spiking the football. And then the boss is going, well, what do you chase? What's the next thing you're chasing? How's your pipeline look? And I'm like, man, let the paint's not even dry on this win. Let me celebrate. And I just got fed up with that. And then, companies get bought and sold and then reshuffled, and you work for a new boss and you're downsizing and people are leaving and new people are coming. And I really just got frustrated with the whole thing. And, my wife was having some success, and we had, at that time, 6 rentals. And I was like, well, I've got my retirement. We've got this rental income. I've got my real estate license. I could join you and we could do some stuff. And really in one summer, the summer of 22, as I was really giving some thought about leaving government contracting, we had like $30,000 worth of unexpected expenses on our rental portfolio. We had a rental tenant move out of one of our rentals in Jacksonville, Florida, in the middle of the night after doing $15,000 worth of damage. We had a major leak in one of our rentals that cost $5,200 to repair, and we had to replace a roof on another property, and it wiped out the cash flow for the whole portfolio for about 2 years. And I was just like, man, there's got to be a better way. And that's when we really started looking to scale into multifamily commercial real estate.
So, I mean, outside of your wife's experience, I mean, you had no training, nothing like that within really the investment world. How did you get that training? How'd you learn what you needed to know?
Great question. We joined a mastermind. We invested and paid for training. We joined a guy. His name is Rod Khleif. He has a podcast, and he's pretty well known in the industry. And we joined his after I was listening to podcasts of various different industries, and I liked what Rod was talking about, and I ended up reaching out and liked his program and spent the money. It wasn't cheap, and and got educated. And that's what I would encourage anybody who's making a transition into anything before they do, get educated. And we spent the money, got educated, and really that gave us all the confidence to start buying and selling apartment complexes.
So, what did that first deal look like for you then? As you're going in, looking at that very first apartment, obviously, I'm sure a little more dollars than what you were spending on single family residential, a little more complicated cash flow, a little bit more due diligence than what you're doing. I mean, was it just full on confidence, or was there a little bit of second guessing during that first transaction?
There's always second guessing. There's second guessing today. Uh, no, but whenever I got in, whenever we got into this program, the one of the things they highlight is, hey, identify your strength, know what you're good at, know what you're not good at. And for me, I was a sales guy. I'm from Texas, like you. We like to talk and spin a tall tale and just make authentic connections. And I knew I was going to raise money. That was my superpower was going to be a capital raising and in, you know, investor relations. And my wife is a incredibly talented numbers person, like kind of like a savant. I mean, so she was going to get into underwriting. So, once I identified that, and our mentor in that group who was training us said, hey, you guys have very unique, call it superpowers. Now you need to reach out to people in the industry that are doing deals and say, hey, put me in, give me a shot, and try to provide value to those folks already doing deals. So, that's what, I reached out to, oh man, probably, at least a dozen operators. Hey, I think I can raise $1 million on my first deal. And they were all like, hey, this is critical that we close. It's your first time. It's a lot harder than you think. Maybe next deal. So probably 7 or 8 no's until somebody said, I'll put you in. Somebody put me in and gave me a shot. I'll put you in. And we were really, really fortunate. We raised $1.6 million for our first deal. And then it was kind of, the word travels fast, and then people would reach out for other deals. So it yeah, it was slow going to begin with, but once we had some success, it really is kind of the law of the first deal. You get the first deal done and you do it well, that snowball starts to roll pretty fast.
So I like what you mentioned that you guys figured out what your superpower is. What did that process look like?
A lot of self-reflection. One, obviously what you're good at, and I'd been doing sales for 10 years, and Victoria had been running the finances for our family and doing, residential deals for, at that point, 15, 17 years. But even just as importantly, what you like, I mean, what you enjoy. I enjoy talking to people and having conversations like this and meeting new people. My wife's like, man, you never met a stranger. I can be in the line at HEB and be like, hey, I love your shirt. And then it's off to the races. That's not her. She's really, really quiet, but she sees something and it's a puzzle. She wants to, hey, what about this? And if you turn that knob and you turn that knob and hey, that piece doesn't fit, let's pull that string a little further. So I would say it's figuring out what you really are good at, but then figuring out just as importantly what you enjoy, and that takes self-reflection and being not being unafraid to ask somebody, hey, what do you think I'm good at? What do you think I suck at? And being able to not get your feelings hurt.
I mean, how long did that take you through that process? Who'd you talk to? I think that's one of the things that many veterans that come out, and they've never really had to do this. I know even for me, it was probably 4 or 5 years ago, and I really sat down and had to self-reflect of what am I actually good at? What actually fills me up? I was making
Yeah.
a ton of money. I was miserable.
Yeah.
And it was my wife who basically sat down and said, why are you so grumpy? Well, I don't like my clients. Oh, well, obviously there's something there. Let's look at this. So, what did your process in? Who'd you reach out to? How long did it take you to figure all that out?
Well, you hit it spot on. I mean, number one was my spouse. And then, I've got 3 siblings. I can they know me I've known them longer than anybody. So I reached out to them, specifically my younger brother who lives in Houston. And then, we've all got two or three military buddies, whether we're still in active duty or that are out already, that you can say, hey, man, uh, you can really say, hey, just tell me like it is. You got those guys that you can say, hey, I need you to tell me when my fly is down and always count on them. And so I had, there was about six people that, I really was deliberate and intentional about reaching out because each of them has a different perspective. They each know you. My wife knows me as a husband and a dad and a friend, a life partner. My brother knows me as a big brother. My military buddies know me as, a logistician, a knucklehead, a Navy officer, all those things. And they all see different aspects of you and different pieces of you and different, what fills you up. And hey, yeah, you really enjoy that, but you're always telling me how much you hate it or whatever, So getting competing different perspectives, I think is critical.
Was there anything in those conversations that you were like, well, no, duh, you already knew, or maybe on the opposite side, like, really, that's what you think of me?
I think, yeah, I think, I think we all have put our mask on, like as a husband, there are things that challenge me that that I don't want to share with my wife because, we all want to be that husband or that wife who's strong and, hey, I've got this and I can handle it. But then maybe when you're talking to your brother or one of your boys, you're bitching about it. Oh man, this sucks. This is making me miserable. Like I'm so stressed out about this. And those perspectives, your wife's coming at you from a loving perspective, really, really wanting to buff you up and encourage you and love on you. I mean, she's going to be brutally honest. My wife's brutally honest, which, I appreciate that. But I think, getting that competing perspective from, my military buddies or my brother, that was really like, I know you like that. I know you like the sale and the pitch and the chase, but you hate the rejection. So are you really, really, really going to be, is that you're going to be okay with that? So, and I didn't really register that, at first. I hate losing and so much in real estate, I mean, people don't want to talk about it a lot, but there's a lot of losing. You get offers turned down, uh, toilets blow up, roofs got to be replaced, units burn down, and it's kind of like losing. Hey, you either lose a lot of money, or you're losing sleep, or you're got all stressed out, you're losing peace of mind. So yeah, it was a good exercise to really figure out, how bad you want it.
How long did that take you? Was it just a couple of months? I mean, a few weeks?
Oh no, I'd say it's probably a 4 to 6 month process.
Okay.
And I mean not every day, but really having those conversations over over weeks at a time, and then kind of digesting it, and then going back and, hey, we had this conversation. You remember when we had this conversation a couple of weeks ago? You mentioned this. I've been thinking about that. What do you think of this? And just really having those, go back and forth. It just, I would say 4 to 6 months is what it really ideally should take.
Yeah, I would say it's probably about the same for me, maybe a little longer than that as I was kind of diving into a few different things. But yeah, I think that's fair, and I think that's great advice for anybody who is looking at transition is to figure out what you really are good at, what that superpower really is. You can go out and make a ton of money, but if you're miserable, is that money really worth it? If you're
Yeah,
so
exactly.
miserable, I mean, the quality of life, I could make a lot more money elsewhere, but I'd be completely miserable where I'm happy and we make a comfortable living. And there's something to be said about that as well.
You better believe it. There's something to be said about peace of mind and freedom for sure.
So as you start to scale the multifamily investing business, you had obviously just the real estate side of things that were coming into it. You're working with your spouse, which may add different layers to that struggle as well of having a spouse as not only a life partner but a true business partner. What did that first couple of years look like as you guys are starting to scale the investment side of the business?
I would say it was for us, fortunately, it wasn't super challenging. And the reason I say that is because she had her complete area. I mean, I was looking for deals and raising money, and she was underwriting. So, I mean, she wasn't dependent on me. A lot of times it's like you're sitting around and you're doing something, and then your wife and I are, you're going back and forth on what that project looks like. Uh, I would find the deals, get brokers to send us potential deals, and then I would give them to Victoria, and she would do her thing and kind of, independent of me. So she had her own little, call it book of business area, scope of work that she really became fine tuned at. And then once uh, she got really, really good at it, it makes it easier on me because I'm a deal guy. I'm like, oh, this is a fantastic deal. I love this deal. Let's go, but let's do this LOI on this deal. And she'd be like, this isn't a deal. And once I figured out, hey, she knows what the hell she's talking about, it just, that level of trust really helped bring the partnership together that much more. So it was a really kind of smooth transition. Now I'd be remiss of saying that she didn't get sick of me at times because we both work from home, but that happens to everybody, right?
Sure.
At least I hope so.
No, and I can imagine sometimes turning it off has got to be a challenge as well. Is, when you go out to date night, are we talking about the deal or are we talking about date night? Like I can
Yeah,
imagine that's got to be an interesting challenge working with a spouse in general.
it's a
How
hundred
have
percent.
you?
Yeah,
I
it's
would say
it's
how have you guys managed that?
probably not well enough, especially all
Fair.
of our kids are grown. We've got a 28 and 30-year-old sons and 20, almost 22 and 23-year-old daughter. So they're off doing their own thing, living their best life. And so it's mom and dad at home. And so we probably don't do as good of a job of, putting work on the shelf at, 6 o'clock as we should. Now, with the Dallas Cowboys are on or the Georgia Bulldogs are on, we can definitely shelve the real estate talk, but uh, uh, but we don't do as good a job as we should.
No, that's fair. So what about the business side? As you started growing the business, was there anything that you didn't expect was going to be as nearly painful or challenges you guys didn't expect to see as you started growing the business itself?
Yeah, that's a, a really good area to highlight is, whenever, like I'd said, we were reaching out to operators saying, hey, put me in, put me in, put me in. Well, once we kind of got established and we were really looking for deals and starting to get deals sent to us, uh, we're reaching out, we're trying to put together, hey, we got this deal, let's put together a team. And we figured out very rapidly that's not really the way to do it. You need to find a team and build a team, and really that way when you find a deal, it's you've been working with people, everybody, where everybody fits in the equation, everybody's superpower. And so it took us probably about 2 years of working kind of independently as our former company, which is Hartzell Capital Partners, uh, to find a group of guys that we really, really bond with and our values align. And so we just started a new company called Grovia Capital with some partners that we're starting a new company to go after bigger, better deals. And I would say the lesson learned there is kind of pay attention when you're starting out to folks that you're like, man, I'd do a deal with that person. And then once you've done a deal or two with a team and you like those people, consider teaming up and really forming something enduring because it really will accelerate how rapidly you can scale.
So how do you know? Because I've done deals with people and you like them, and then you go to the next step, and then you realize they may not be that great of a partner. Like how do you balance? They do good work, but might be a terrible partner, and really finding that team. What did that process really look like, and what were the challenges that you found as you kind of went through building that team?
Uh, Being deliberate. I mean, you think you have to be very, very deliberate. I mean, we did. two or three deals with the same team early on in 23 and 24 and loved them. But after a couple of years in those deals, we're still in those deals and they're doing fine. Uh, we're just like, hey, I don't, I'm not sure this is the way that we would want to do it, long term. And so whenever we met this team that we're currently building this new company with, this public facing company, we were really deliberate about spending time together, whether it's, conversations over Zoom, uh, paying the money to meet up in person a couple times and really, really spend some time together over a weekend and really figure out what they're all about and kind of what drives them, what their why are they doing it, and their long-term plan. You don't want to be, hey, let's form this public facing company and ask the person, well, I want to retire in 2 years. What are we bothering for? So really making sure that their long-term goals are well aligned, your values are well aligned, your personalities don't have to be 100% aligned, but aligned well enough where you can have a healthy argument and just be like, hey, water under a bridge, and that takes time. So I would tell you that we worked on this partnership for over a year, and we're super excited about it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things, and I like how you laid that out because we see too many times. Let's partner together. Let's do it. You want to make money. I want to make money, and then you didn't do the due diligence. So and so's wife is crazy, or I mean, there's all sorts of family dynamics that come into it that start to make things even more terrible. I think we had not us. There was a group, in our market that beautiful development. It was going to make a ton of money, and then one wife got jealous over one husband spending more attention this way. Turns out the entire partnership started sleeping with each other, and the whole thing blew up. And it was complete personalities. Everybody on paper, experts in what they did, knew what was going on, but yet the personal life was what ultimately made things crazy. It, and that, I mean, how do you screen for
Crazy.
crazy personal life? Yeah, I mean, that,
That's, I don't know. That's a great question because I'm not sure I know. Uh, hmm, I don't know. I think just time. I mean, I think you've really got to spend time with people before you really, uh, kind of tie the knot. You're getting married.
you are.
You're getting married, and unless you're on the Golden Bachelor or the, Love Island or one of those things, then you better spend some time with somebody and know what you're getting into and know who you're getting into what you intend to be a long-term enduring relationship with.
It's fair. So as we start moving to wrapping up, if you were to sit back and look at the Marv who was getting ready to get out of the Navy, looking to make that transition, into civilian life, is there anything that you would have done differently, or wish there was a lesson that you may not have learned as hard as you or as difficult as you did?
Okay. Yes, definitely. I would say start early. I mean,
Okay.
start early. I mean, I felt like I was really on the ball. I was like, I'm going to start planning a year out. And and I thought that was enough. I was like, man, a year out, I can schedule all my VA stuff and my disability stuff, and I can go to TAP, and I can get a mentorship with ACP, and I can do all. Now, I thought I had it wired. And then what I realized is that I had all that stuff that everybody tells you, hey, get a mentor and make sure you start your VA stuff early. And I did everything that everybody said, but I didn't do the work of, hey, what do I want to do? What do I really want to be when I grow up? I've been doing this military thing since I was 18. It's all I know. Uh, do I want to be a teacher? Do I want to be a sales guy? Do I want to be a plumber? What do I want to do? Do I want to write books or be an author? What do I really want to do? Because I think military folks, the one advantage, the huge advantage that retiring or transitioning military people have is you've got the ability to completely recreate yourself. I mean, you can be a freaking Navy SEAL, and if you've always been interested in being a freaking artist, then if you plan it right with for 2 years or however long that takes, you can do that. And you can totally recreate yourself into whatever you want to be. And, if you're a retiree, you've got at least a little bit of a cushion there that will help you make that transition. And even if you're like you will and you didn't retire, it was some planning. You went to school. Hey, you went to school, got a degree, and totally transitioned. And I think that that's the superpower that a lot of veterans overlook. I mean, you've got this opportunity that most people never have, or most people are too afraid to take, and it's built into the military lifestyle. So I would tell folks to pay attention to that because it's a real blessing. And then I would tell people to start early.
Awesome. That's great advice, Marv. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing with us. If you happen to find this episode to be value, feel free to give it a share, like, comment, of course, through all the social media channels. You've got questions for Marv and his journey, put those in the comments, shoot us a message. We'll make sure they get to Marv as well. I'm sure Marv's more than happy to jump in and kind of help those conversations and help those veterans kind of make that transition as well. Don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's what at least I'm kind of seeing from your heart. So with that, again, thank you so much for your time, and look forward to seeing what you do in the future.
Hey, thanks, Will. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, likewise.